There is a kind of love that comes not to be lived, but to be understood. It's the one that strikes us like lightning, intense, uncontrollable, leaving us face to face with a presence that feels deeply familiar. The gaze of the other awakens something dormant within us, an ancient memory of the soul. But suddenly, the enchantment turns into pain. The other withdraws, doesn't reciprocate, doesn't stay, and we are left there between absence and desire, asking, why do we love those who aren't ready to love us? Carl Jung said that love is the great field of projections of the psyche. What we admire, desire, or fear in another is often a reflection of what we have forgotten within ourselves. Unrequited love is not a punishment. It is a mirror revealing the distance between who we believe we are and who we truly are. Perhaps the true purpose of such encounters is not to possess the other, but to recognize ourselves through them, because sometimes it is the broken heart that leads us back to the soul. If this theme resonates with you, stay here with me. This is an invitation to a deeper understanding of love in the light of Jung. Chapter 1. The Alchemy of Encounter, when love is a call of the soul. Jung said that every meaningful encounter is a kind of psychic alchemy, a fusion of inner worlds that transforms us. When we fall in love, we are not merely meeting someone, we are meeting a lost part of ourselves. There is something in that gaze, that gesture, that voice that ignites an ancient spark, as if we recognized in the other a fragment of our own soul. This experience is what Jung called the projection of the soul image, anima in men, animus in women. The anima is the inner feminine figure in the male unconscious, bearer of sensitivity, intuition, and mystery. The animus, in turn, is the inner masculine principle in women, the force of reason, clarity, and action. When we fall in love, these inner figures are projected onto the other, and that is why we see them as almost divine. It is not merely a body we love, it is a dimension of ourselves manifesting through them. Love then becomes a calling of the soul, the unconscious desire to unite the separated parts, to return to the lost wholeness. But that union rarely happens without pain. For when we project onto another what we lack within ourselves, we inevitably create an illusion. We see the other not as they are, but as we wish them to be. And the more we idealize, the further we drift from reality. The true alchemy of love does not lie in merging with the other, but in the inner transformation that the encounter awakens. The other did not come to fill a void, but to reveal what we have yet to integrate. They are the mirror that reflects the hidden face of our soul, and through that reflection we are invited to grow. When we realize that love is not possession, but a process of awareness, something changes. We stop seeking love as salvation and begin to live it as a path. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of the heart, to love, not to find the other, but to find ourselves in their reflection. Chapter 2. The Mechanism of Projections, seeing in the other what we forgot in ourselves. Jung taught that we project onto the outer world what we cannot recognize within. The unconscious, in its wisdom, finds symbolic ways to reveal what has been repressed, forgotten, or denied, and one of its most powerful tools for doing this is through love. When we look at someone and feel an inexplicable attraction, a sense of destiny, we are often facing a projection. That person becomes the canvas upon which the unconscious paints our inner images, our desires, fears, ideals, wounds, and potentials. That's why love can feel so intense and at the same time so confusing. We don't love the other as they are. We love the reflection of what they awaken within us. We project our light when we idealize someone. We see in them qualities that are, in fact, dormant within us. Courage, beauty, sensitivity, freedom. But we also project our shadow, the parts we don't want to see, jealousy, rejection, insecurity, need for control. and so the other becomes a total mirror, reflecting both our light and our darkness. The problem arises when we confuse projection with reality. We expect the other to sustain the image we created, and, inevitably, they fail. Then we feel pain, frustration, rejection. But the breaking of that illusion is, in truth, the beginning of consciousness. Romantic love is a bridge the unconscious uses to lead us back to ourselves. When the mirror shatters, we have two choices: to mourn the loss of the image or to gather its fragments and discover who we are without it. And it is at that very moment, when the enchantment dissolves, that the true work begins, the work of integrating the projections and recognizing our own soul reflected in the eyes of another. Chapter 3. Loving the Mirror, Why We Hold On to Those Who Aren't Ready. There is a particular kind of pain in loving someone who isn't available. It's a pain that mixes hope and despair, as if our soul knows there's something there and yet knows it cannot bloom. But according to Jung, the unconscious never misses its target. If someone enters our life and awakens this impossible love, it's because something essential is meant to be seen. The truth is, we don't cling to the person themselves, but to the image they represent. That distant figure may symbolize the father or mother who didn't love us the way we needed. It may embody the unreachable ideal of perfection, or the part of ourselves we have yet to allow to live. Thus, loving someone who isn't ready is a symbolic way of revisiting our primordial wound, the place where we learned to confuse love with absence. Until we recognize this, the cycle repeats. We seek in another what we need to awaken within: acceptance, safety, worthiness, and each rejection becomes a silent reminder. Look within. What you expect from the other is what your soul asks of you. The one who does not love us fulfills an initiatory function. They didn't come to complete us, but to return us to the path of wholeness. The pain of non-reciprocation is the flame that burns illusions and purifies the heart. And when we can see that, something transforms deeply. We realize that true love begins not when we beg for it, but when we radiate it. This is the passage from needy love to conscious love. It is no longer the other who must be ready. It is us. For emotional maturity arises when we understand that love is not a reward to be earned, but a frequency that awakens from within. Chapter 4. The Role of Anima and Animus in Relationships. Within each of us dwells a duality: the masculine and the feminine, the rational and the intuitive, the visible and the invisible. Jung called these forces anima and animus, the inner soul figures that connect us to the unconscious and to mystery. They are bridges between who we know we are and who we can still become. In men, the anima is the inner voice of sensitivity, feeling and connection with the unconscious. She leads him into the world of empathy, poetry, and surrender. In women, the animus is the force of clarity and reason, the principle of logos, that drives expression, thought, and will. When these aspects are unbalanced, we project them onto others, and that's when passions and conflicts begin. A man who hasn't integrated his anima tends to seek her in a woman's eyes, idealizing her as a muse, savior, or redeemer. A woman who hasn't integrated her animus may project him onto men who symbolize power, wisdom, or authority. Thus, every relationship becomes an unconscious attempt to reconcile what is divided within us. But there comes a time when projection must dissolve, when we realize that the other cannot bear the weight of what is ours. That's when the true journey begins: inner integration. A man must learn to listen to his anima, to feel deeply, to embrace his emotions without fear. A woman, in turn, must allow her animus to become an ally, not a critical or dominating voice, but a force that supports her expression in the world. When anima and animus work in harmony, a state of wholeness is born. Love ceases to be a search and becomes a presence. It is no longer need that guides the bond, but awareness. And the other is no longer the missing piece, but the reflection of what already blooms within us. Chapter 5, The Awakening, when the other stops being a savior and becomes a teacher. Every love begins with enchantment and ends with revelation. When the projection fades, when the other no longer holds the role we created, it feels as if something dies. And in fact, it does. The fantasy dies, the ideal, the character painted by the unconscious. But it is precisely in that morning that the soul awakens. The one who once seemed the love of our life becomes, in truth, a disguised teacher, because it was they who showed us, with surgical precision, the exact point where we still didn't know how to love ourselves. It was they who revealed our emotional dependence, our fear of abandonment, our longing to be chosen, and by withdrawing their presence, they offered us the gift of solitude, the purest mirror of individuation. Jung said that the process of individuation begins when we stop seeking outside what can only be found within. And that is the true awakening of love, realizing that the other didn't come to complete us, but to remind us of what we already are. Disillusionment in this sense is not the end, it is the portal to awareness. When we look back and thank the mirror that once hurt us, we take the first step toward real love, no longer the love of possession, control, or neediness, but the love born from presence and acceptance, the love that recognizes the beauty and limitation of the other without demanding that they save us. That is the turning point, when the other ceases to be a savior and becomes a silent teacher. And when we can see that, the heart expands, because it understands that every farewell is, in truth, a reunion with our own center. Chapter 6, Exercise of Integration, Retrieving the Projection and Embracing the Soul. Now that we understand how love projects our soul onto another, it is time to call that energy back. Withdrawing projections is not a rational act. It is a silent ritual of reconnection. It is the moment when we stop looking outward, waiting for someone to see us, and begin to see ourselves with the same love and admiration we once offered another. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe deeply. Imagine before you the person who most marked your emotional journey, perhaps someone you loved and couldn't have, someone who left, or someone who still lives in your memory. Let that image arise without censorship. Observe what you feel. What does that figure awaken in you? Desire, anger, sadness, longing, tenderness. Now, with an open heart, say silently, I recognize that what I saw in you was part of me. Your light is my light. Your refusal is my reflection. And I release you from the task of carrying what is mine. Feel, for a few seconds, the relief that comes when the projected energy returns to its center. It begins to spin again within your field, transforming into vital force. You no longer depend on the other's love. You begin to be nourished by your own presence. Take a notebook and write, what did I admire in this person? What part of me did they help me see? What do I still need to embrace within myself so I no longer seek it outside? This exercise is an act of individuation. You are gathering back the fragments of your soul scattered across other hearts. And as you bring them together, a new wholeness is born, silent, deep, serene. Unrequited love ceases to be a wound and becomes a bridge. The bridge that leads back to the inner home, where the soul finally recognizes itself as whole, worthy, and free. Conclusion: love as a path of individuation. Love is, perhaps, the deepest teacher of the soul. It leads us to the heights of idealization and then to the depths of detachment. It shows us the brilliance of the other only so that in losing it, we may discover the light that was always within. Jung said individuation is the process of becoming who you truly are, and love, with all its beauty and pain, is one of the most powerful ways to achieve that. For it is through meeting and losing, attachment and release, that consciousness awakens. Loving someone who isn't ready to love us is a mysterious form of self-knowledge. These souls cross our path, not to complete us, but to remind us that we are already whole. They come as mirrors of what we've forgotten, and they leave when the lesson is complete. When we understand this, love ceases to be a search and becomes a state of being. We stop begging for reciprocity and begin to radiate presence. And in that silent, sacred moment, the heart understands. We have lost no one. We have simply found ourselves again. And in that reunion, true love is born. If this message resonated with you, share your reflection in the comments. Perhaps your story is the mirror someone else needs to awaken.